For the most part, throughout the last few months, the press coverage of Facebook has been uniformly positive, and they've really been doing a bang up job. But we think we might have identified a little bit of an issue for them, and it's covered in recent reporting by ProPublica. And all jokes aside, we are very lucky to be joined on the show today by reporter for ProPublica, Peter Elkind. Welcome to the Damage Report.
Good to be with you, John.
It's great to have you here and to get a chance to talk about this article, which we very much enjoyed. It has to do with WhatsApp and privacy protections. Can you tell us a little bit about what you found in your investigation?
Sure, absolutely. Well, what's the big picture is that Facebook and WhatsApp offer very, very sweeping assurances that the WhatsApp messaging platform is encrypted end to end, and that no one, including Facebook or WhatsApp, has any access to any of the messages. And these are assurances that have been offered by both WhatsApp executives and certainly by Mark Zuckerberg as well, without really any caveats. We discovered that it's not quite as simple as that, that in fact, while WhatsApp is indeed encrypted end to end, and there's no break in that when users report a message as allegedly violating terms of service, that 5 of the most recent messages, including any video or images, then go to this unseen team of outside contractors, more than 1,000 of them, that are hired by WhatsApp to review the content, and they look at it very closely.
So to say that no one sees your messages is perhaps in the best of cases true. Any given message might not be seen, but it can be seen, and you would presumably not have any idea that that was happening. Do they receive any sort of warning? How does that work?
The people whose messages are being reported do not receive any kind of warning. They're then investigated by the outside content moderators, and it's possible that certainly some of the messages do need to be investigated, and they are abusive, and there's bad stuff that goes on in that platform for sure. So it's appropriate to have some form of policing, in Facebook's view, certainly. But there's also a lot of stuff that's reviewed unnecessarily, that people might be reporting because they're pranking someone, or because they're trying to shut down some other user to get revenge on them. There's a lot of unjustified reporting that takes place.
Okay, that's really interesting. So let's say someone or group of people wanted to do that. How easy, how feasible is it to use the system in that way?
Well, it's not hard at all. There's a report button on WhatsApp, and if you believe that a message is violating and you want to report it, or you want to just retaliate in some form, you hit the report button, and that sets in motion a process where the last 5 messages, again, including any video or images, will be screened by artificial intelligence at Facebook and WhatsApp, and then ultimately, very likely reviewed by human moderators.
Okay, well, so of course in my intro I was joking. Facebook has been experiencing a lot of bad news, and outside of just the scandals, there was the outage that happened earlier this week of both Facebook as well as WhatsApp. Yes. And based on the reaction here in the US, it certainly seemed as if the outage of Instagram and Facebook was what affected US-based individuals the most. But that said, WhatsApp internationally is very significant. Can you tell us a little bit about how big of a product this is for Facebook?
Yes, that's a very, very good point. WhatsApp is a player in the US in the chat world, but overseas in many countries, it is the key form of communication. It provides free chatting, free phone calls, and there are countries, India and Brazil and others, where it has by far got the majority of the market and is a central form of communication for people.
Okay, and if in a particular country, WhatsApp is basically like what your phone is. That's how you communicate.
Exactly.
Exactly, yeah. So we have heard in some other cases of a variety of companies, I'm not focusing exclusively on Facebook here, of them having deals or agreements with host governments of these countries that might not be democracies that provide some access to information. Did anything like that come up? That sure, there's pranking and there's people sending inappropriate stuff, but in theory, if this is where a lot of organizing and communication is happening, it seems like some of the privacy concerns might be about exploitation by governments outside of the US.
No, there's no question about it that the concerns about privacy apply, especially in regimes that are not particularly respectful of democratic rights or freedom of speech. And so any notion that that providers are playing ball with governments raise the specter of whether they're helping collaborate on crackdowns of dissidents or journalists. A second part of our story is the degree to which WhatsApp is able to turn on metadata tracing and does turn on metadata tracing in response to law enforcement requests in the US and also to requests from other countries. And we're told in report that there's sort of a special provision where they provide more metadata to authorities in Great Britain and 3 other countries.
And what could be included in that sort of metadata tracing?
Well, metadata is not content, so you don't see the content of user what I'm writing to you, but there's a whole lot of information. And metadata is security agencies like to say that we can find everything about you from metadata. It will detail who you're messaging, when you're messaging them, how long the exchanges took place, or when a phone call took place. There's often geographic information that's in there as well. So you can learn a whole lot from metadata, and it's a very sensitive subject as well. It requires court authority in order to obtain it in the US.
Okay, yeah, so that could be significant, not containing content, but location data for in some repressive governments could be very significant information. And also, so I hadn't known this, but in reading your piece on ProPublica, Facebook has held up WhatsApp in particular as being an example of them getting better or being better now in privacy in a way that they hadn't previously really been thought of for some of their other products. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Mark Zuckerberg issued a treatise, posted it online about, and this is in the aftermath of the course of the Cambridge Analytica scandal, which resulted in an unprecedented $5 billion fine against Facebook for privacy violations from the Federal Trade Commission, and a consent decree, which the entire company was required to adhere to. In the aftermath of that, Zuckerberg promised that Facebook was going to take a totally different approach. It was going to that he had come to appreciate that privacy mattered a lot more, and that he was seeking to put all unify all of Facebook's platforms and its chat platforms, including Facebook Messenger and Instagram Messenger, in the model of WhatsApp. They were all going to be encrypted, and he's going to unify them together. And that in this piece, he held out WhatsApp as the model for what he wanted to do, discussing it many times.
Okay, well, if that does come to pass, hopefully there'll be some improvements over the current status quo. Although I understand if they've got a lot on their plate these days. In any event, sorry, continue.
I was going to say yes. Facebook is trying to juggle this tension between privacy and security, safety on the platform, and they've made decisions about policing the platform that other platforms, such as Apple, with its messaging system, have not. In terms of, Apple and Signal have said we think there are privacy issues for doing the kinds of things that WhatsApp is doing.
Sure. If you're watching this and you have concerns, you want to learn more, you can go to ProPublica. The article is How Facebook Undermines Privacy Protections for Its 2 Billion WhatsApp Users. And you can find out a lot more there for the work that Peter and his associates did. Peter Elkind, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, John.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.